Howdy everyone. So this is lesson 2 of my Romeo and Juliet series of lessons. I'm going to be looking at Act 1, Scene 1. Again for this one, I'm hoping you guys have watched the film and hopefully done a little bit of research into it and looking at the initial plot of the film. So starter activity that you can pause for in just a second is that I want you to explain to me what you think the expectations were of men during Shakespeare's time. Okay, pause the video and then we'll discuss. Okay, so let's look at these expectations then. So you can kind of get a sense of this from the images that are in front of you. So if you look at this left-hand side one, that's what we have here. We have men were expected to go to battle, be soldiers, be brave, be strong. In the middle one, you're expected to, again, show that bravery, show that strength, but without showing emotion. So men were expected to be not necessarily emotionless, but those emotions should be kind of contributing towards their overall masculinity. And this final image that I've taken from Mad Men is that men were expected to do all the jobs. Women didn't have an education. Women didn't have didn't get the money in the family. It was men that was expected to do that. So we have going to war, being brave, being the person who made the money in the family. So what I'm going to be looking at today then is Act 1, Scene 1. Now you're welcome to pause the video or skip part of the video if you're not interested in looking at, in hearing me read all this out, but I will do now so that you can kind of get a sense of, as I said in the last video, it's much better to listen to Shakespeare rather than just to read it. Okay, so you've got Samson and Gregory, who are part of the Capulet family, which is what Juliet belongs to. And I'm going to read both characters. Okay. So enter Samson and Gregory of the house Capulet, armed with swords and bucklers. Gregory, oh my word, will not carry coals. No, for then we should be colliers. I mean, and we be collar, we'll draw. Aye, while you live, draw your neck out of the collar. I'll strike quickly, be moved. But thou art not quickly moved to strike. A dog of the house of Montague moves me. To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runnest away. A dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's. That shows thee a weak slave, for the weakest goes to the wall. True, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore I will push Montague's men from the wall, and thrust his maids to the wall. The quarrel is between our masters and us their men. 'Tis all one, and I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with them, I will be cruel with the maids, and cut off their heads. The heads of the maids? Aye, the heads of the maids, all their maiden heads. Take it in what sense thou wilt. They must take it in sense that feel it. Me they shall feel I am able to stand, and 'tis known I am a pretty piece of flesh. 'Tis well thou art not fish. If thou hast not been poor John. Draw thy tool. Here comes two of the house of Montagues. My naked weapon is out. Quarrel, I will back thee. How? Turn thy back and run? Fear me not. No, marry, I fear thee. Let us take the law on our side. Let them begin. I will frown as I pass by, and let them take it as they list. Nay, as they dare, I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace to them, if they bear it. So enter Abraham and Balthazar, who are part of the house of Montague. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? Is the law on our side if I say aye? No. No, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. Do you quarrel, sir? Quarrel, sir? No, sir. If you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you. No better. Well, sir, say better. Here comes one of my master's kinsmen. Yes, better, sir. You lie. Draw if you be men. Gregory, remember thy swashing blow. They fight. Enter Benvolio, again part of the Montagues. Part fools, put up your sword. You know not what you do. He beats down their swords. And then enter Tybalt, part of the Capulets. What, art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio. Look upon thy death. I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage it to part these men with me. What, drawn, and talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues and thee. Have at thee, coward! And then they fight. Alright, so quite a lot going on there. Now, you have two characters from Capulet discussing, having a little bit of banter, I suppose you call it, between them. And then we have members of the Montague family that they decide to provoke. Now, they have this little discussion in the middle, which is... So they have this discussion about provoking them and how to do so legally and getting the law on their side. So what they mean by that is they're going to provoke them, but in a way that gets them to be fought, rather than then having to start the fight themselves. So they bite their thumb at them, which is like the equivalent of sticking your middle finger up of them, I suppose. And so they have this moment where they provoke them, and then they get into a fight. So what we're looking at here is lots of characters all having a battle of words, and it ends up being an actual battle. Then we have Benvolio come in and tries to split up the fight, and then Tybalt enter, who tries to make the situation worse by trying to fight Tybalt. Now, as our focus is on expectations of men at the time, the focus of this scene and what we're going to be looking at today is how masculinity is presented, how men are shown by Shakespeare in this first scene. Because remember, this is just the very first scene that Shakespeare presents to us. So let's look at violence then. So what I've picked out here are, how many are there? Five quotations, 5 sections of the text that show the violence of the men at the time. Let's look at the first one. I strike quickly, being moved, but you are not quickly moved to strike. So Gregory is insulting Samson, saying that he's not quick to fight. He doesn't attack as quickly as he thinks he does. Samson, 'tis all one. I will show myself a tyrant, which is like a cruel leader. When I have fought with the men, I'll be cruel with the maids and cut off their heads. So he's making threats towards the enemies who are supposed are the Montagues. My naked weapon is out, Samson says. Quarrel, I will back thee. I'll get you back. I'll help you if you want to start a fight with these men. So Gregory says, do you quarrel, sir? Abraham, quarrel, sir? No, sir. Samson, if you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you. So not only do they provoke the Montagues, they then almost pretend as if it's Abraham wanting to start a fight with them, which is interesting. It shows the how pathetic these men are in trying to start an argument with the other side. And then Tybalt says, what drawn and talk of peace, I hate the word, as I hell all Montagues, and thee, have at thee, coward. Again, trying to start a fight. So what we get a sense here of is the violence of these men coming out of their sides and provoking each other in order to get them to start the argument on them. Okay, so that's the Capulet starts the argument, and then actually it's Tybalt, again a Capulet, who's much more provocative and much more willing to fight than, say, Benvolio, who belongs to the Montagues. Let's have a look at the... Okay, so the sexual connotations. Now, Shakespeare throughout all of his plays, but mostly in the comedies, we get a little bit in Hamlet with some of the comments that he makes, but we do get quite a few sexual connotations in this opening scene of Romeo and Juliet. So let's have a read. So Samson says, women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore, I will push Montague's men from the wall and thrust his maids to the wall. Now, you can kind of get a sense of what he means by thrust. It could mean sword, but obviously the main thing that would probably elicit or create a laugh in the audience is the fact that thrust has much more deeper sexual connotations than it does violent ones. Samson, I will be cruel with the maids and cut off their heads, and the heads of the maids, aye, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads, take it in what sense thou wilt. So what he's talking about there is the concept of a maiden head. Now, if you were a virgin at the time, you were considered a maiden. Now, maiden head is a woman's virginity. So what he's saying here is that he will take the head of the woman, but he will also take their virginity, which obviously has kind of sadistic, cruel, rape-like vibes in the 21st century. But at the time, this would have probably created a laugh in the audience who understood these words and thought it was funny that he was so aggressive towards the women. Samson says, me they shall feel while I am able to stand, and 'tis known I am a pretty piece of flesh. So let's go with the beginning part of that. Me, they shall feel while I'm able to stand. I'm pretty sure he's not talking about his hand, he's probably talking about his penis. And 'tis known I'm a pretty piece of flesh. It shows the confidence of these Capulets in having a fight, and almost as if the women who they attack would enjoy what they're about to do. Draw thy tool, my naked weapon is out. Quarrel, I will back thee. Now you've got here, obviously the violent language, but you can draw thy tool, which obviously could be sword, but it could also mean their nether regions. And you also got my naked weapon is out. So even in these very serious moments, um, the characters in Romeo and Juliet, the violent men, do not take it seriously. And you'll see that again with Mercutio later, Romeo's friend. But in this particular scene, Gregory and Samson of the Capulets, they just don't take the fight seriously. They're doing it just almost like a game. And then we have these sexual connotations kind of backs that up as well. Now, what the main thrust of this then is how masculinity is presented. So the focus is, well, if Shakespeare's got these two men being violent, being aggressive, but also being sexual at the same time, what's he trying to say about his society? Does he agree with that? Does he find it funny, as perhaps the audience might? I've seen performances of it, and people do find this scene funny. Okay, so you'll task them. The bigger task, I suppose, is answering this question. So how does Shakespeare present the men in Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet? Okay, oh, I should have put a question mark there. So how does Shakespeare present the men in Act 1, Scene 1? Is it a positive representation? Is it a negative representation? And how so? Did you find it funny? Maybe you didn't, maybe you did. Okay, so the key words that I'm thinking, hopefully, that you guys will come up with and use in your analysis is masculinity, violence, sexual connotations, and also hopefully using PESL. Now, PESL, as you know, is point, evidence, zoom, explore, link. So you make your point, you answer your question, you use the evidence based on the ones that I've given to you here, and also once you've got your quotation, you zoom on a keyword. You explain what language feature it is if it's got one. If not, just a word type is fine. And then once you've analysed what words are interesting about those quotations, you explore them in detail. So once you've said what they mean, you tell me what the audience reaction would be to that. Maybe consider how our audience would react compared to a Shakespeare's audience and how that is different and why. And then link back to the question. It's important to link back to the question so that if a lot of your analysis doesn't quite link back to masculinity or men, then that makes sure you do. Okay? So answer this question then, I'll say it once more. How does Shakespeare present the men in Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet? Try and use those key words and phrases, masculinity, violence, sexual connotations, and try to use PESL. Okay? I think an activity like this should take you roughly 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so I'm looking for about 3 quotations analysed really. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a summary on the quotations just to make sure you're clear. Okay, so we have violent imagery, particularly about starting an argument and talking about weapons being out and having a quarrel, which is an argument. Okay, and in the sexual connotation section, what I want you to do is look at how these men don't take this violence seriously, and that they talk about taking virginities. There's hints of rape in there, and also you've got men joking about having their penises being revealed, or perhaps it should be their sword, but we all know what Shakespeare's trying to intend. So as I say, 20 to 25 minutes to do about three puzzles, three analyses of 3 quotations, if that makes sense. Now, if you're not sure on how to analyse, do let me know in the comments. But this, as I say, 20 to 25 minutes.